Welcome to this session of Coffee Talk. I'm here with Eva Hörtrich. Eva, thank you so much for joining us today. Eva, you're somebody who we've long wanted to bring into our Coffee Talk series. You're somebody with long experience. I mean, maybe longer than we might want to admit. More than a decade working in analyst relations at Unify, formerly Siemens Enterprise Communications,
Right.
and something like a 15-year career going back to when you first joined Siemens. And I think you're one of the analyst relations managers who's in a most interesting position because you're working from Europe in a global brand, and working part time in a program that stretches all the way through the analyst relations program, from building relationships to managing interactions at events to using feedback to try to evaluate and influence company strategy and managing major analyst evaluation processes. So you're somebody with a very broad knowledge across the analyst relations process, and also very long and deep professional experience. So we're really delighted to have you join us today. I've got one question which we often ask to people in coffee talks, which is, how did you come into analyst relations? Was there a point in your career where you decided to move into analyst relations, or did you simply roll into it?
Right. Definitely, I rolled into it. Thanks for the introduction, Duncan. It's true. It's very impressive and a bit scary at the same time when I'm counting back that my time with Unify and Siemens back then is 16 years this year. And of course, I did not start in analyst relations, had a couple of different roles before. Started in product development, not as an engineer, but as a project manager to support the project leads in order to achieve their milestones. And then after 1.5, 2 years in that role, I changed to a different Siemens unit and joined marketing, and then had different roles, like executive customer briefings, which was really an exciting role because it allowed me to work very closely with the customer and also with sales. And then I moved into a different role that was even closer to the customer. I worked in a team that managed the on-site the customer briefing center or executive briefing center. It's like a little bit like a permanent trade show environment that we have there. And my role was to guide customer groups or also partner groups or other interested groups like students, for example, and show our products and solutions. So this was exciting as well, and also required to work closely with product management in order to install and maintain the solutions that we wanted to show there. So I think that helped a lot for me to shape my external perspective on our solutions and products, and also the way how we present them. And that definitely helped also then for analyst relations, because it's all about the external view, right? So after that role, I did join Analyst Relations, and that is 10 years ago, I believe, this year. And back then, this had been totally new to me, of course, and actually also pretty much new to the company. It wasn't a natural move inside the marketing department because it was the strategy department that established AR at the time. And I came to the job through my internal network. I knew the lady that had been asked to establish the analyst relations team, and it was more or less by accident when she saw me presenting to a group of customers, and then after that asked me if I wanted to join her team. That's how I came into it.
And so I think my feeling is that, looking back over this last decade, there's been a lot more change in the industry landscape over the course of the last few years. Do you have a feeling about how things have changed, maybe in the last couple of years?
Yes, of course. There's huge change going on. Industry has been changing significantly and is, of course, continuing to do so. We see a shift from hardware to software. Virtualization is a big term there. That eliminates the need for hardware. Cloud is, of course, the term in that context. And solutions and products moving to cloud also, of course, require different approaches to the customer, how you're selling your solutions and product. Mobility, one of the things that has become a no-brainer, I would say, in enterprise communication requirements today. Our customers are highly mobile. Mobility has been changing the whole world of enterprise communications, because what we find more and more is that the borders between business and consumer communication users are blurring. And all that, of course, has an impact on the analyst community as well, eventually. I also think of social communication and social business that has evolved, and not only as another communication channel, but as networking platforms and also as sales tools that can be of massive value. And again, all this has and is having an impact on the analyst world. So we're dealing with a lot of change in the industry, and of course, as a consequence, in the analyst community. That makes the role very exciting.
I think one of the other things that's interesting about your role is that you're able to work quite effectively in the Siemens team while holding a part-time role. And obviously, something that's very real for you is the need to balance your responsibilities as a parent, and obviously your fun and enjoyment as a parent as well, with the work that you're doing with analysts and with your internal stakeholders. So how have you been able to balance work and family? I mean, obviously, a big part of it must be the way that Unify and before then Siemens are committed to helping employees. But maybe there are also some particular strategies or tactics that you found essential.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that quite often, actually, and it's really, analyst relations is a role where you do work full time, usually, as you do in any other role of high responsibility, and it's a tricky thing sometimes. I don't want to say that it's all pink and great all the time. Of course, I'm struggling like every mom does when she has a job and a job of a relatively high level of responsibility. But there's a couple of really luxurious external circumstances that I have. So I work out of home, which is not a big deal for example, in the US, but for many German companies it still is. I have flexible working times, and as you said, I work part-time. So my office is in Munich, about 1 hour away from where I live. In my part-time contract, I currently work 23 hours per week, right? Black on white, I would say. So it's definitely not 23 hours. It's much more than that, like every part-time employee, I would say. And I go to the office once a week and spend the day in the office with colleagues. So any face-to-face meetings that I would like to schedule, I save for that day. I can make lunch appointments, go and have a coffee with a colleague. This is a very valuable time. And the rest of the time I work from home while my children are in school and in kindergarten. And I also work a lot in the evenings, a lot. That's important to accommodate the time differences between Germany and the US. My manager is on the West Coast. So we have a 9 hours time difference, which is really challenging sometimes, because when people in Germany are about to end their day, she's only starting. So that's why the evenings are important for me. The balance, or so-called balance, works great because there's so much flexibility. I feel that the company has enough trust in me to allow me to work anywhere and anytime. Also trusts in the fact that I can fulfill this task of high responsibility in less hours, which is, of course, a highly motivational factor for me and ideal for balancing out work and family life. And coming back to the part-time, it is actually something that you can do. I would love to see more companies offering part-time models like this. I mean, today we're all mobile, especially in our industry. We can react almost instantaneously, even if you're not at your PC because you're, doing homework with your children or cooking lunch or whatever. You're able to react to an important message. you don't really miss anything in your free time or so-called free time. So yeah, I would love to see that in the future. But it's a great model because my children are relatively little, 8 and 5 years old. And it's just great to spend time with them in the afternoon and pick them up from school and, talk to them, play with them, or, have the flexibility to drive them around as needed. So yes, it's a great model for me.
One of the things you mentioned earlier on was your background and what it was like coming into your role without having, for example, an engineering background. And perhaps I'm mistaken, but I think of companies like Unify and Siemens as being ones that really, value an engineering culture, and where many of the managers have got a strong rooting in that approach. And I think often we find that sometimes that could produce some extra challenges in winning executive support, not only for analyst relations but for marketing more broadly. I mean, have you found that or other obstacles in winning leadership support during your career? And
Mhm.
are there any particular approaches that you found useful in maximizing the support?
Very good question. Yes. Definitely not the fact that we in communication are not engineers. That is definitely not an obstacle for anyone, and also not for internal reputation. I mean, there's a reason why we're in communications, and that brings me back to the external view or external perspective that I talked about before. It's so important to look at our strategies and solutions and products from the external point of view. This is what I really learned when I worked a lot with customers in my executive briefing and solution consultant time. That is very significant, and I think that is the fact that is being appreciated by management and colleagues, that we always in analyst relations try to bring people or on a level of reality where we say, okay, stop for a moment and put yourselves in the shoes of a person looking at us from the outside world. How would you see that? And then, very quickly you see that, okay, yeah, we might change our view here. This is a very significant and very important skill that you have to bring to analyst relations, not only AR, of course, PR and all communication roles that face the external audiences. Regarding our specific leadership team at Unify, reputation is very high. They're supporting analyst relations a lot. We have a new leadership team at Unify that has been on board for a few months. So we had a complete exchange in the months between January and March, I would say. And when they all came on board, we happened to be right at the beginning of this year's spring event season, with events like Mobile World Congress, Enterprise Connect, CeBIT. So all those industry trade shows where typically a lot of interaction happens between management and analysts. And the new team immediately committed to attend all of these shows and to meet with analysts, which was of course a big challenge for them on one hand, as they were almost completely new to those analysts, new to the company, and then also new to those analysts that Unify deals with. And of course, the questions that they got were all about, where are you taking the company? What's your strategic plan for the next 6 to 12 months, and so on. But on the other hand, it was also a huge opportunity for them to start and build relationships and to get feedback from the analysts. And of course, we as AR were with them all the time, which gave us a chance to sense their way of interacting, and that allowed us to think about future engagements. So strategically, it was a very important time at the beginning of this year for analyst relations. And looking back, after a few months, and after having had a lot of interactions and engagements with this new leadership team, I can say that they're very focused on analysts and analyst relations. They clearly expressed that dealing with the analysts is key for them and a high priority. They clearly want to be involved. So yes, I would say we had a successful start with that new leadership team this year.
And I think one of the challenges, again, something not only for analyst relations, but other functions in kind of relationship management more broadly, is trying to get the kind of internal recognition that we need to be able to to get resources and even to defend resources in some instances. So, do you have a feeling about what that internal recognition looks like, and perhaps even how it's developed?
Yes. As I said, the leadership team is definitely buying into analyst relations and analysts, and the rest of the company as well. Looking back, when I started in analyst relations 10 years ago, there was almost no awareness of AR in that very beginning. There was one person spending 20% of her time doing analyst relations, or so-called analyst relations, and that was really only on a reactive basis. So, when there were requests for shipment data, or they were producing a report and needed some input, but not really a proactive and strategic approach. That, of course, changed when we built that expanded team. And I believe it was 2003, probably 2003 or 2004. When we started to do more proactive outreach, we saw that analysts all of a sudden were really thankful that there were some points of contact inside the company who could react to their needs and also could reach out to them proactively. We started doing events and all the things that analyst relations is all about. So that is, when I look back, it's a hard time and it's a long time that people internally need and take to buy into analyst relations. Very in the beginning, when you ask them to deliver something, usually that's not what people want to do, right? They see they have to deliver something, and additionally to their normal work, they say, why? What's the outcome? So, I call someone, we have this analyst and we would need you for a briefing on this product. And he says, yes, of course. So will he write a report, or will he say something good about us? And, no, not immediately. That's not how analysts work. So that took a long time for people to accept and to recognize that putting time and effort into a briefing does not automatically mean that a report is following immediately, or a positive quote, but that it's important and valuable to keep analysts up to date. They needed to understand that a product update might, or does hopefully eventually, result in a positive or improved perception, and that it results in recommendations towards customers, but that it does not happen immediately and not necessarily black and white. So with the time and with a lot of educational work internally, which is still ongoing, of course, we're seeing that the internal perception of the AR work changed, and that people recognize that AR is an important and integral part of the company. If they see that there is success, for example, in an improved rating or an improved position, they see that their input and commitment does have an actual result, and that they were part of that. So yes, bottom line really is that today we get an incredible support.
And I think there's an interesting point there that certainly I feel that when many of the people who I speak with are talking about the kind of internal recognition they're looking for, either they're thinking very much in terms of like formal structures and reporting lines, or they're talking about things that can be measured with numbers, counted. And I think really what you're talking to is also the fact that for analyst relations to be successful, your stakeholders have to feel satisfied, and in a certain sense, they have to feel that their own involvement in analyst relations is rewarding and effective. So it's about that feeling, not just about what you can measure formally.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's also part of the internal education, that analyst relations is very hard to measure. That's something that all AR professionals deal with more or less at a certain point in their, when they get more into analyst relations, they see, okay, this is not something that we could put down black on white. I mean, you can certainly count numbers of briefings, but how many of those briefings have been strategically really important and have led to some kind of success? How many analysts are really recommending your company or your solutions in their calls or talks with customers? So there is not really a way to measure that, and that's an important part. So making them aware how important this work is, and that eventually it results in an improved perception, in deep and trusted relationships with the analysts over the years. That is significant. That helps a lot. Yeah, that's how it worked in our case.
So we've spoken a lot about, I mean, many of your experiences, but I just want to have one final question on my mind, really. Looking back at how you became an analyst relations professional, what advice would you give people coming into the analyst relations profession right now?
Good question. The world has changed a lot. Not only the industry, but also the world of communications. So many new communication channels have appeared on the landscape. Only social media, the mention of social media opens up a whole, book of possibilities, wide open. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google Plus, all these things that analysts use. You definitely have to be open to social media and social communication, if not use it actively. If it makes sense, right? That depends also a little bit on the social media strategy that your company has, but you definitely should have relationships with your analysts over social media and follow them on Twitter or on other social platforms, because that has really become so important as a communication channel for them. You can sense their feelings, you can see which events they're going to, you can get a feeling of what they're thinking about next. That helps so much to shape your own relationship strategy. Definitely, that is a very important point. Other advice is, specifically in our industry, it definitely helps to be open to technology, even if you're not an engineer. Of course, it helps to get a better understanding also of the heart and soul, technically, of your products and solutions. But if you don't, then at least try to use the technology that you're talking about if your company allows it. And that also, again, helps to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is looking at your company from an external viewpoint. It helps to shape your perspective. I would also advise analyst relations professionals to access AR networking groups. This is of tremendous value to exchange opinions, challenges that we're all facing, concerns with your peers in the industry. And within those groups, I have never had a feeling that there is a competitive attitude. Never, really never. Even with our direct competitors, it's all about the work that we do, and it's all about the challenges that we face as analyst relations. Be it, with a certain analyst evaluation, or be it with some approach to management, whatever it is, it's all on the same level. So there's no need to think competitively in that regard. Being self-confident definitely helps, internally as well as externally. In our role, we represent the company to a very influential external audience, and we often have to communicate complex and challenging messages to the outside world. So it definitely helps to be self-confident and say, it's just what it is. It's like that. And then last but not least, have fun in communicating. Really, AR is all about relationships. And it also helps to discover that analysts are only human beings as well. You can really talk to them on a normal basis. But that is something that you have to find out over the years. And what I always think is really nice to see that so many analyst relations people stay in their jobs for a long time. There is not so much fluctuation maybe than in other roles, and I think this is because it's just so valuable to build up these relationships, and it takes a while. It takes a few years. It doesn't happen in the first year when you're still trying to figure out what AR is all about and what analysts do and why this is really important. It takes a long time, and then once you have this relationship and it's established and trusted, you can really achieve great things.
Thank you, Eva. That's a really wonderful and positive note to end the coffee talk on. That on the subject of networking, of course, one other thing that I should mention is the Analyst Relations Forum. We're extremely lucky that you are one of the International Advisory Council members for the Analyst Relations Forum this September. And if people listening would like to get invitations to future coffee talks, or to find out more about the forum and both the conference in September and the other activities at the Analyst Relations Forum, please just come to LinkedIn and search for the Analyst Relations Forum in the groups. Eva, thank you again so much for your time. It's been, fascinating and amusing and really compelling to learn from your experience.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.